just shut up, Tom, and I listened to people. And when I felt there was a question needing asking, and I asked it like, and the way some people think, well, I can't ask that, I'm a bit nervous, or that might be a stupid question, they're gonna laugh at me. Ask the question. There's no stupid question if you don't know the answer.
Hello and welcome to the Ireland on the Fly podcast about the people and places of fly fishing in Ireland. For this week's episode, we speak to an Irish fly angler who is now not only living and fishing in Sweden, but also represents his adopted country at World Championship level. Wicklow's Graham Reynolds tells us about the incredible fishing that's to be had in Sweden and how, despite his early struggles in the competition scene over there, he kept at it, and in a few years it led to him fishing at the Worlds and captaining Sweden in 2024. But first, Tom, you fished Sweden as well, I believe. What was it like?
Yeah, come on, Dara. Yeah, I fished Sweden a couple of times. I fished the Worlds back in 2001. That was my first cap. And then I fished, I think it was 2005. I fished the Europeans in a place called Saxnäsgarden. Funny, that sticks in the mind more. That was fantastic fishing there. It really was. Now, it was rivers and lakes in the event. And the lake was just close to the base in Saxnäsgarden. And we ended up having cracking fishing on it. And it was very interesting because there isn't a tradition of loch-style fishing in Sweden. So, there's a lot of fishing from anchor boats and everything. And of course, it was run over, the competition rules were from a drifting boat. And God, we cracked it. I think in the four sessions, we had 2 4s and 1 2 of them. There was 15 teams in it. Yeah, it was really good. No, we did well. That was the one that Tom Sweeney, Swanky from Macroom, was really unfortunate. He was winning the whole individual event with just 1 session to go. He just got a bum draw on the last one. But no, it was really good. The fishing was lovely. The place was gorgeous. Really liked it. So much so that I know Tom used to bring a party back there, and a few of them, was it Dennis as well, Dennis Crum? But a few of them from down that neck of the woods went back to Saxnäsgarden for a few years and had cracking fishing. Really, really lovely spot.
I'd say I know of a few lads who go over salmon fishing, and they're saying that the fishing is brilliant now. They said it's not a numbers game, that you might be might get 1 or 2 for the week, but if you get the 1 or 2, you'll be doing well. And it's one of those kind of places, like, as you'll hear from Graham, like, it's between grayling, trout, pike, he was saying, is massive scene over there. But it's interesting, actually, you were saying, I didn't realise that, like, for all the lakes, and you're saying they don't really have a loch style tradition.
They don't. No, they don't. And, like, to be honest with you, they were really interested in chatting to us afterwards. They were sort of coming up to us, looking at the flies and everything. And at the end of the competition, as you get in most competitions, very free, giving them the flies and everything. And they did work up there. They really did. I'm trying to think. It was small black bumbles that were working, and we're the only non-traditional thing you'd say at the end to weight the fly, we were putting a bead head on the end, which you could fish, flip smoosh, and then above we were fishing a team of 3 on an intermediate with smaller black bumbles, just trip through the waves. It's cracking. They don't have a tradition. They don't have a tradition, but it was interesting. Even talking to Graham there, and how he's sort of the same. Of course, like, it's great talking to Graham, but like, his background is rivers, and of course, like, I'm trying to find out more about the lakes there. But it's the land of 1,000 lakes. Lakes all over the place. It's very interesting there as well. Like, some lakes will be designated commercial fisheries, where they net them, and they harvest them for fish. So much so that one of the evenings we were served Gravlax char on wooden boards.
What was that like?
Oh,
I believe it's beautiful.
To die for. To die for. It was absolutely beautiful. And then the lake we were on was designated as a sport fishery. So there was no commercial fishery out. It was just all over the place. Very interesting as well, when we were talking to Graham, it comes up about the Baltic salmon. You mentioned the salmon there. And then we chatted to Connor about it before. That's now, as you know, I'm a trout man, but there's something about the Baltic salmon now here.
But it seems to be a bit more of them around.
Yeah, well, you know what? I never thought that could be the reason.
I said it. There's worse places you go to move, for Graham.
And it's great because like we didn't really even we touched a little bit on the fishing. I think definitely it's one we got to revisit because there's some cracking fishing there. We only scratched the surface with Graham.
Another one for the bucket list.
Woo! Yep.
Keeps getting longer.
Yeah,
all right,
it's great.
well, look, let's get back to this week's guest. And I first asked Graham about his background on the Wicklow rivers.
I didn't really start fly fishing until I was about 14, 15, but I was fishing relatively young in other methods, spinning and whatnot. Being from beside the coast, we had an abundance of options. And I mean, I grew up fishing the Vartry River, and then the Vartry Angling Club down there in Ashtown Lane behind the rugby club. Maybe you might be aware of it. But that's where I would have started in 1994. And my father got me in as a member. I would have been one of the founder junior members. I think I was only 14, 15 there. And I grew up there all my life. Yeah, and then as I got to about 18, 19, 20, obviously car came along. I was able to go further afield, and I would have been heading up into the Wicklow Mountains, exploring the small rivers and streams, the abundance that we have up there as well, like the Avonmore and the Ockram River. I would have fished a lot, the Avonbeg, and all those small little tributaries of the Avonmore as well.
And did you find, Graham, as you were getting older in your teenage years, that, you might have started out as a kid with a couple of other kids who were into fishing, but that you were getting more into it,
Yeah.
And you were the kids, the teenagers were kind of dropping away.
They fell away, yeah. In my teen years, I played a lot of golf as well in Wicklow Golf Club, and I happened to be half decent at that. I mean, I got down to a 4-5 handicap.
Jeez, you must be spending a lot of time on the golf course.
Yeah, so in between both, like, I mean, I was fishing, and my grandfather, God rest his soul, he'd collect me, and then the rods would be in the boat, and I'd be heading up to the pond, we call it. Now, it's a small lake where it used to actually feed Wicklow. Its water supply up until around 1920, I think it was. And correct me if I'm wrong, if anyone's listening, but circa 1920. And then it dried up for years, and it was almost like a little nature reserve. And then 93, 94, could have been around that era, they decided to dam it or close off the valve, fill it back up again, and it became a lovely little fly fishing club that's still going to this day.
And then as you were then, like I said, kind of 18, 19, you were, like you said, you had the car, you were going further afield. You were going up to the mountains. Was it the kind of the mountainy streams that held the interest?
Yeah, started to realise, like, I mean, you can get out onto the rivers. I would go further south. We would have been fishing for the sea trout in the dead of night on the Vartry River that flows into Broadlocks down there in Wicklow Keys. I would have been heading even further south down towards Arklow, to the Anna Riley and all those tiny, Potter's River. You might have heard of those tiny little rivers, like, but would primarily get a good head of a sea trout run, like, So I just loved that in the dead of night, and so I learned to be quite accurate with my casting, I suppose, in the dark on my knees.
In small streams, yeah, it sounds like.
Small streams, yeah.
If you didn't, you wouldn't be, there's no point of fishing them.
No, you needed, and then also, Tom, you'd be wanting to go down and doing your research and knowing where you're going to be fishing that evening, or a day or two after you had planned to go down there. Because if you're going down there unannounced to where there's a turn or there's a big bush or even a barbed wire that might go over from a farmer, you need to scope it out, know exactly where you're going to fish, because you're completely fishing in the darkness, like. Yeah. And also, you don't want any moonlight behind you either for a most productive night of East Coast sea trout fishing, I
remember reading Focus's book about sea trout fishing. I've never done any of it, but I could probably quote the book off by heart.
It's a cracking book, Hugh Focus, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great book.
My father told me, to read up on him and his patterns and his flies, and they were quite, to today's standards, they would have been fairly basic, like.
Yeah. Did it help you actually, the book? Did it help you for your night fishing?
Would have, yeah, it would have. I mean, I would have started off when I started tying my own flies. I mean, I was literally there wouldn't have been these small Euro nymph style hooks and jigs and beads of all different weights. And there wouldn't have been a lot of tungsten either, Tom. It was
No.
just it was really your penals and your natural tails and your
Yeah.
traditional wets like that you were just swinging across
Down
a
and across. So
goal.
they were the tactics, weren't they?
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
if you got a really, really dark night, you could literally put on any type of dry fly, like a Goddard sage or a
Yeah.
piece of dark foam, and you'd hear them supping for it.
Yeah.
And you couldn't see it. Like you just have to wait for your strike and lift your rod up. And sometimes you'd get them. Sometimes 9 times out of 10, your line would be in the tree behind you because you think they've gone for your fly, which they try and sink it a bit.
Yeah.
And to primarily take another investigation of what it is. Like so they initially won't take it on the first take.
It's just as if they're just taking it on under and then they're going to hit it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of patience involved in that little technique as well, and I learned that. And getting to Dara's question there, I just remembered. I suppose it was self-taught. My father was never really a fly fisher; he was more spin and
Right.
worms and all that. That old school type of method as well. I just it really probably all started from the lake down there in Ashtown.
Right.
And then I'd get involved with some of the older members, and there was some great mentors there that came through the years. And you were never done asking questions, and why do you have that, and what's that there for? And you'd learn something every time as a young buck going down there. And it was so close to me. I used to just go across the fields.
You were that close.
Down across a little stream through a cattle field, and I was there at the entrance, and I'd walk up and I'd bring me packed sandwiches and everything, and I'd be up there till dark.
Class. Brilliant.
Yeah,
brilliant. So you can see where you came on. Then you start, I suppose you really honed your fly fishing on probably the night time on the small East Coast rivers.
Yeah.
And after that, did you stick at that, or did you go further afield within the country, or?
I did. I stuck with that. I got into I met another club member of the Irish Angling Club, and we were kind of mutually thinking I'd love to try a bit of the salmon fishing with the 13, 14 foots.
Right, yeah.
Casting and whatnot. And we got into it for a couple of years, and I have all the gear still there. I brought it over here with me. But we would go down to the Blackwater a lot, and I fished many times on the Drowse. And,
wow! So you kind of caught the salmon bug a bit, did you?
I did, yeah, and I got a few as well. So it was right there.
You got it good.
Yeah, I never got the Drowse. Now, when you get a fish there, it's 9 times out of 10, it's a big fish or a fish of a lifetime, and it craves for a lot of patience. So every time I was there, we were always around end of January, February, and I would always get a kelt or two. But I mean, in the say 6, 7 times I was there, I never could get a fresh fish into the net.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's a hard old game as well,
Oh, like who you telling? Look, the salmon it's a perseverance game. It's a perseverance game, isn't it?
Yeah, you have to keep at it. So I brought the gear over here, and we fished some bigs. When I first moved here, I fished some big rivers down near the mouth where they enter into the Baltic Sea over here. But I remember one weekend I went, would have been 2013, I think it was, and there was big salmon being caught and big sea fish at the same time. Sure, I caught every species in the lake or the river except I was targeting. I caught pike on tube flies.
You didn't know.
Small brown trout were taking it, but no bars of silver.
Right. No, but you still have the stuff there. Okay, so listen, we just jumped a bit there. There's a huge thing missing here. Okay. So, that's a big thing. So you're talking about fishing early in the drought. So the next thing you're talking about fishing in rivers in southern Sweden. How did this all come about?
Right. Yeah, we've 45 minutes. I suppose I moved over here. I mean, my love for Sweden. I I won't touch on this, but I have to put it into the story to make it applicable and for folks to understand it. I would have met a girl that was from here, 2006 or 7, and then in 2012 I actually emigrated over here.
2012,
yeah. I had been here on a couple of occasions on holidays, but then obviously that relation didn't work out, and so I was single for a few years, and I had since met my lovely wife, and we've kids, and we're married, and let's get that end of the story out. But then I moved here in 2012 April, and I remember it well. It was very daunting. It was after the economical crisis we had around 09, 010, and I'm the crash. Yeah, I'm a plumber by trade, and. Right. I was sitting around. I got into the stores, and I was a manager of a store, and I was doing, this what's that? I do lose a lot of my English when I'm speaking Swedish.
Say it the Swedish, and our Swedish listeners will know.
I wouldn't know it in Swedish either. What's it called? Into marketing stuff, and I worked. I was an assistant manager in Extravision. And then best friends where I got into, and it wasn't what I wanted to do. I was a qualified plumber, and I wanted to do that. So lo and behold, after about 6-8 months being here, I would say early 2013, I got into a company here, and I've been with them ever since. But anyway, that's the historical background of how I came here and where I'm at now. But I brought all my fishing gear with me.
A wise move.
Important thing. That was the most important thing. So then
tell me, the family, your wife's family, and anything. Is there any fishing attached to them at all? They've nobody in her family fish. She doesn't fish.
Yeah, the father tied a lot of fish, tied a lot of flies, and
oh, cool, excellent.
Now that you mention it, and did a lot when he was younger. Now he's in his 70s now, and he's still quite active.
Yeah,
for a man of 70 odd or whatever. But he came before Christmas with boxloads of feathers that I'll never get through in my life. Hooks from partridge and redditch, hooks, camisson hooks, you name it, Tom. If you could come over here, I could have a little mini weekend show of just, giving these things away. You might see them, but our listeners won't be able to see them. But boxes and boxes of feathers that I've never even heard of. So
trays upon trays behind you there. Yes.
Brilliant. It's brilliant. Yeah. So that was great. He and he fishes the odd time spins. Doesn't really fly fish anymore. But I kept at it when I was over here. I recreational fished when I first come here. I was always looking for that lake, and it's primarily very hard when you move to a different location, let alone a country. Now you start to find these clubs and rivers, and I wasn't fishing rivers when I first came here. I would have been just fishing stocked rainbow and brown trout lakes, and I found solace and enjoyment in that for a couple of years.
Yeah, they're great. They fill a purpose. I've always said it.
Yeah,
they really do. You dare see some people knocking them. I'd never take that. They fill a purpose. That they are what they are. They give you
exactly, and you learn so much from it, which your casts and your retrieves and your depths and everything. You do learn a lot from it.
Actually, what part of Sweden had you moved to?
Fairly central. If you could draw a line directly west inland from Stockholm, you come to a city called Örebro, and it's the 5th or 6th. It might be some people it's debatable 6th or 7th. For the Swedes,
you don't get caught up on that. I see.
Yeah, the 6th or 7th biggest city per capita of population.
Yeah,
about 130,000. I'd say living in it now. And that's where my base camp was for years. And only last year we moved further north. Now, when I say further north, we're like an hour north.
Right.
But you go in gradients with sea level. I'm I'm up, I'm up maybe 100 or 150 meters higher now, up in the same county, if you want to call it.
Yeah.
But I'm much closer to small brown trout lakes and brooks and these little streams, and then to the bigger water where we train and we fish. I'm even closer still. I'm just about an hour and a half from them. So, so I can't wait till the snow melts to get out,
Now, I really want to ask you about the fishing, but just there, and it's just hit me now. How is your Swedish? How did you suddenly went over to Sweden and
disaster to start.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would go to these parties and evening gatherings with friends or whatever, and I mean, it was nice at the start for them because they would want to speak a lot of English, and the Swedes, they're great at their English. Their school is phenomenal. Like, they are very good at English. I mean, it obviously Swedish is their first native language, but their English is a very close second.
Yeah.
So, like, the large majority of 90% of people in Sweden speak English to some simple degree. It's just the slightly older generation that would have learned it when they were younger, and then it fell away from them.
Yeah.
But these younger folks now that are coming out of college and stuff, you could hold a very intellectual conversation with them. Like, they're very good at their English. But my Swedish, let's say, after 12 years now is this might get a few debates, but any of the Swedes listen to this. But I hold my own, Tom and Dara. I'd say I can have a decent conversation. But they will say it's a hard language, like with the grammar.
Yeah.
And pronouns and nouns and all that. Like, but I mean, I'm learning every week. My wife's been great. She'd always go, sometimes I need to just speak Swedish with you in the house. Like, I say, yeah, no problem. And then my youngest son, he's 5, he could come down and completely speak English with me. Like,
right.
But that's my wife's idea straight out the door. And you see, and I can't help that if my little son comes down and just whatever he wants to speak on the day, like, because he's bilingual, like, so.
What's the biggest or most difficult thing for you in terms of settling over there, did you find, apart from the language?
The hard winters, Dara. Hard winters, not being used to it at all. And not only that, if we reverse it into the middle of summer, for example, the sun never really goes down. It never gets pitch black around the middle of June. So I actually remember I was finding that very hard. So I had to buy these really heavy curtains, almost like black, to keep the sunlight out in the evening times.
Amazing.
It was uncanny, like, when I first came out. And then over the years, that was never a problem.
Is the winter tough? Because I was in Lapland last year, and sweet Jesus, it was like the sun wasn't up until about 10 o'clock in the morning, and it was dark by 2. And it was like, it was brilliant for the first few days, and then after a while you kind of go, this could get depressing very easy. Like, yeah,
especially if they live it. Like, now, thankfully, I'm living central Sweden, so I mean, you can fit from Malin to Mizen Head, the whole of the length of Ireland. You can fit Ireland lengthwise into Sweden 4 times.
Right.
It is a big country, isn't it, Graham?
It's skinny, but it's massively long.
Yeah.
Like the width wouldn't be much, especially down south. The width of Sweden wouldn't be much wider than the width of Ireland. Obviously, a little wider, but you'd probably get from east to west in about 4 hours.
Is it lakes? That's the impression I get. Just lakes.
Well, I could call it the land of 1,000 lakes.
Right.
Yeah.
There's lakes everywhere. And all these lakes are connected with water systems, small little streams that go through untouched forestry. And then there could be bigger waterways like canals. And they're all hydro dammed, the bigger rivers. Every 20, 30, 40 kilometers, they're all hydro dammed. And primarily Sweden gets a lot of their energy through these hydro dams.
Mm.
And I see more and more wind. These wind farms going up as well, and solar is another thing that's popping up, more popular.
But how's that affected the fishing then, Graham?
It's not good. We're fighting for it. Like, there's a trust there as well in Sport Fiskarna, which will be like the equivalent of almost like Taffy Ireland, but they cater for all types of fishing. They're constantly fighting the back, and they have a phrase in Swedish which translates into English, something to the effect of "Give us our waterways back," or give us our rivers back," or something to that effect. But we do hear here and there all over the country that they're, for example, one dam, they're planning to take it down. It's just not producing, so then they get funding from the government and it's demolished. Or they'll try and build these fish ladders up by them. But some of them are so big, it's just you can't. It's impossible to construct a fish ladder for primarily migrating browns and sea trout that would want to go further up.
Going back to it, because I'm looking there, like initially you started there with the stock fisheries around you, and then when you moved that bit further up north, that opened up more, let's say, wild brown trout fisheries. Did you branch out from there then?
Yeah, well, I only moved up north last year. Now, I was still travelling, Tom, that length up.
Right.
For about 4 or 5 years now, I've started it. I won't jump ahead of the story, but I'll answer that question first. So it kind of, and that's really where the competition fishing started. But when I first found that I could go up, take a weekend, or even if it was that desperate, I'd leave very early Saturday morning.
And when you went up to these places initially, what was the fishing like? Tell us.
Phenomenal. Phenomenal, massive rivers, like the width of the Shannon at its mouth. Huge flowing rivers, packed with grayling and small brown trout, up around like a 2-hour drive from where I am north. And that's where basically the grayling line starts. There's not really many grayling down south here. It's very strange.
Oh, right.
Nothing. But then there's a few rivers in Denmark that have grayling.
Yeah.
From line Stockholm, as I said, through Örebro, over to Norway, directly south, there's no grayling in this country. They've died off. It's just, it could be the water clarity or conditions in the water. It could be more acidic, more chalk or whatever, but it's like over hundreds and thousands of years that they're declining further north. But so the fishing's great up there, and it's where we train. And we always love to try to get up there.
With so much water there, it's not busy? I get that sense. Is it like in terms of the rivers or the lakes? Is it like there's so much choice?
But full of anglers and stuff.
Yeah.
You'd always meet. I mean, if I wanted to go on a weekend where I know I'm not going to meet someone, I'd know where to go.
Yeah.
But if I want to go to a place where it's easily accessible for me, I know I'm going to pick up a fish here or there. I'm going to go to a certain place where you might get camper vans and stuff there. But to have these amenities by all the rivers is great over here, because they cater for the tourism, and a lot of the Germans and Danish love to come up from the south. So by these rivers, where it might be overlooked by them, it's brilliant fishable water for us. But those people that park there or camp there, they mightn't have any interest to fish that little area.
Right.
So we just hop in there and fish and down along the pass, and you might just see them having a barbecue, or their dogs might be in the water or whatever. We just move further down.
Now, I'm just asking you there then, Graham, when you went up to these places, like naturally I'd say you've probably been drawn to rivers on account of what you grew up with. What about the lakes? And of course I'm asking you this because I'm a lake man, and I have fished there, and I know there are some great lakes there, but have you bothered with the lakes much?
Natural lakes now, if that's what you mean. I haven't actually, to be totally honest with you, Tom. I nearly did like a 180 reversal on it. When I came over here and I started finding all these rivers, I started to find myself immersed in all these small little rivers, and the lake scene didn't fall away. Of course it didn't. But I will say, probably in the last 2 years, I've neglected it. And I've realised that. I've realised that last year when I went to Slovakia.
Right. Yeah.
But in saying that, I do scope out lakes, and I have a few contacts, and they've told me some nice areas around here that do have natural brown trout. And if I go a little further, they might even have the invasive species of brook trout.
Right.
Brook trout are invasive. Yeah.
Wow. And have they?
And there's no law on it. There's no law. You can catch as many as you want. You can take up as many as you want. There's no catch and release in it. They just don't want them in their waterways.
And also, like pike fishing is great in Sweden, isn't it?
That's a big scene.
Yeah.
Pike perch fishing, zander fishing. That is probably bigger than fly fishing.
Really?
Primarily, yeah, especially down south. Like you like my two neighbours, they go out and fish for the big lake behind me there. They would fish for the roach with the kids, on the little floats and stuff and maggots and whatnot. And then you have the big boys who are going out 20, 30 centimetre jig lures and, for the big double figure pike and then big perch as well. Like that's massive over here.
And what about the salmon ground? Because I've heard of a few fellas going over doing a bit of salmon fishing, and they've been raving about it, apart from the mosquitoes.
Yeah, the mosquitoes. Yeah, you just need to know how to tame them. That's all. But
do you have any remedy? Do you have any remedies for?
Yeah,
I remember.
Yeah, I do. Tom, try every different bottle of midge spray that you can find.
Yeah,
find one that works, or if at least have one of them little. They're like a little gadget where you can't hear it, but you put batteries in it and you turn it on. It's very high pitched.
Oh, okay.
Does that work? I've heard of that.
Apparently it works. Now I wouldn't be getting into any depth, and I just do a bit of spray on me, and that'll be great. But after a while, I do.
You've gone native. You've just gone native.
I go native.
Don't even need a net.
I actually bought a net a couple of years ago, and it weren't worth the what, because you can't even see out through it.
So what about the salmon though? Is it decent salmon fishing?
Salmon's very good. I haven't done very much salmon. I fished a river called the Dáil Elven. It's one of the biggest rivers here. Way upstream is where we target the brown trout and grayling. But down near the coast above Stockholm, that's where it enters the Baltic Sea. And that's one river. And then you have a lot of great rivers all up along the east coast as you go further up, almost right up to the Finland border. And you're getting huge fish. But they wouldn't be Atlantic salmon now as what we would catch back home. So it can be huge now, Tom and Dara. They can grow to like 18, 20 kilos, like 30, 40 pounds, and they're huge. And they go out and they feed on the big shrimps and crayfish and all out deep in the Baltic Sea out there. And then they come in around they almost come in on clockwork. They come in around the first or second week in June for about a month. You'll see the high point, like you'll hardly get a ticket. It's just be very hard to get in. Like, and then it just feathers off, and then you have about a month of nothing, and then the sea trout come back. Sea trout come in the spring, and they come in the autumn, because the temperature of the water has to be perfect for them over here, especially. And they won't come in before that or after that. I'm not exactly sure the temperature of the water, but I'd say it has to be around 14, 15 degrees Celsius for them to come in and enjoy their trip up, So
come here, Graham, tell us, you must be doing some amount of fishing, and you must be good at it, because you turned your back on the tricolour. Yeah. You were.
And don't be listening to Dick Conlon either. I was giving them tips in a secret room in Slovakia. We're looking for beer and whiskey. That's what to do.
But tell us, how did you end up fishing for Sweden?
Yeah, so as I said, now we can get to the part where I was telling,
Yeah.
it got a bit competitive around 4 or 5 years, I suppose. I'm relatively new to it over here, to be honest. Um, yeah, so I started to get into it, and I started to even some of my team members, to mention his name, Eunice. We became friends through that Fishcoin with I did a bit of
Oh,
work
right, yeah.
with Josh there on Fishcoin, and we kind of became very good friends through that. And then we'd have a trip the odd time north, and they gave me a few pointers and put me in the right direction, and because primarily at the start I was doing a lot wrong. But
Okay.
I honed my skills in as an expat, and I listened to these great anglers over here, and I was like a sponge. I just took it all in, and with what I had learned back in Ireland, I put it all together. And 2021, I would have entered my first official qualifier,
Wow.
and I'll be totally honest with you guys, I came really last in it, and I'm like, what am I doing wrong? I'm doing nothing. I'm doing the same as what these guys were doing, and like it was very, very disheartening, very frustrating. I was nearly going, oh, this can't be for me. I mean, so I stuck at it. That winter, I remember coming out of winter 2021, 2022, and I was starting to get into this urine infant technique and dry dropper technique and all those things that align to that. And I was time flies like to beat the band, and it was coming around to comp season, and the snow had melted quite early that year, I remember. So I was able to get up a bit north and start training. And I noticed I was starting to get a lot more grayling from, the small tips that I took on board and things that I learned throughout that harsh winter. And the first competition then came 2022. Middle of June, was up on a stretch of water on the Great Vesterdal Elven, it's called. And it's such a big river. You give them massive beats. We fished the weekend. I can go into detail if he's wanting about that, but I ended up getting bronze.
Oh,
I got the bronze out of that. I couldn't believe it. I said, well, maybe, look, I'll give this another chance, And so I got the bronze, and then it came around to. Sorry, my apologies. I tell a lie. I got silver. I got
Jeez,
I
you're
got
doing
silver.
yourself.
Sorry, my
turn
apologies.
yourself out of a place
I
there.
know it's terrible, isn't it? I got silver, and then a month later, in the middle of July, we were to go way up north, 14 hours drive, way up north, way up to the wilderness. Now, when I say wilderness, I'm saying there's free roam and reindeer and everything. You have to be careful that you don't, and like they're everywhere, like, and bears. And I remember that river, lovely river. River was very low. I was like, this is great. This fits me perfectly. Low river, low down, little pockety water, and I was feeling it, going up. And I remember the day before we'd fished the river, kind of adjacent to that, maybe 15 kilometers and I did very well. I was very happy with the training day and fished that weekend, and ended up, I got a bronze, and that was the Swedish Masters. So I got the bronze in that, and then, long story short, a month later we had the third and final competition, and that was a competition that I had actually organised. It was a Swedish Nationals qualifier for the team. And we had a great battle. Me and my friend Jonas Olsson is his name. So a lot of you will know him. He's actually the proprietor and I wouldn't say owner because it's Facebook, but he's the inventor of the Euronymph page.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
50,000 members on it. It was a great community. So we had a great battle that weekend, and he picked me at the post, and he got the gold, and I got silver.
Brilliant.
So that actually, when we added up all the score, it's Swedish Cup, it's called. So you take your two best tournaments out of the three, you're obliged to fish two. If you don't fish two, you're not eligible to be
Yeah.
qualified to go further, to be picked for the team. So you can fish a three, or you can fish two, but only two will matter. Like, but I fished a three, and I counted up my two scores, and I ended up coming second that year in the Swedish Cup, which cemented my place on the team for last year to go to Slovakia.
How are you on the Swedish national anthem? How's your?
I'm not singing that, Darry. Don't even ask me to sing that. But yeah, I do. I'm pretty good at it. I can. They know I'm definitely not from Sweden.
Do you know the words?
Oh, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, good man. You can start it off with gusto anyway, and then everybody just move on to the next person.
Yeah, no, exactly. But yeah. So that in a nutshell, folks, was how I got into it, and I got into it very quickly and in the deep end, and here I am now. I suppose I didn't have the best season this year. When I say this year, I meant 2023. The rivers were all in flood. I suppose, I don't know. I had a good season, but now when I'm thinking back how Sean was talking in one of the previous episodes, it's more personal goal. It's that you're giving to yourself and you're drawn towards that. The three competitions, the two qualifiers and the Swedish Masters, they were tough because the water we just had, like back home in Ireland, it was just constant rain for the whole of summer this year, 2023.
Yeah, was it? Yeah.
We just couldn't get out and train. Like, then when the comps came around, a lot of us, we were just, personally, I was very unprepared. So I came fourth in the first qualifier. And then, but the highlight of last year was I got the silver last year in the Swedish Masters.
It was absolutely, that's fantastic to do that, considering, like, as you say, the first one that you fished 21, like you were last. So you obviously picked up on some of the tips, right? Yeah. And applied them. So, like, I mean, fair play to you.
Exactly.
That's some turnaround.
Yeah, I just shut up, Tom, and I listened to people, and when I felt there was a question needing asking, and I asked it like, the way some people think, well, I can't ask that, I'm a bit nervous, or that might be a stupid question, they're going to laugh at me. Ask the question.
What is it? There's no stupid questions, only stupid answers?
Yeah. Exactly. Or there's no stupid question if you don't know the answer.
Yeah.
And then I suppose the last competition of last year will go into the books as a write-off. So I crept into the team this year again.
Oh, good man.
So and they voted me in as captain as well. So I'll be a captain competitor.
No,
you're adopted by them now, I have to say.
Yeah.
I know.
Look,
one way to find
my heart will always be in the Wicklow Hills.
Yeah.
Come here. Unfortunately, we're running short in time, and look, we might catch up with you again later in the year, because I would love to kind of delve into find out a bit more of the fishing, because we do bucket lists, and
absolutely,
kind of Scandinavia's kind of on my list now. It's kind of closer to home. But before
you're very welcome to come over.
Well, I'll be over.
I fished it twice. I fished it in the Worlds and a European, and the Europeans in Saxonsgarden. Fishing was fantastic.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, so
incredible.
I'd love to revisit and focus maybe a bit more on the fishing.
Yes.
Yeah, we get in touch, Tommy. We'll get you a week over here this year.
Lovely. I'm liking it.
Get the two of you over here.
That'll be brilliant. But listen, Greg, before we let you go for this episode, tell us your most memorable fish on the fly. Was it in Ireland or Sweden?
Oh, and that's going to be an answer that everyone will be wondering. Now, I've had some lovely fish over here, but I will say, and this might come to a shock for some, but I would say the best fishing day, and it's probably the two best fish I had, would have been down on the Blackwater on Glen de Powell stretch.
No.
Yeah. Now, we're talking 2010, I think it was. I went down. When would that have been? They'd extended it, I think. First week in September, I went down. The fishing was very hard. We fished for a whole 3 days. We were down by, I don't know if you can help me with, down the Island Pool, or what was that down?
Kilmurray.
Yeah, Kilmurray.
Yeah, downstream at the island,
Yeah. Just down at the bottom of the island, hooked into a lovely 14 pound bar of silver. That was on a double-handed rod. I think that was my loop. It was a 14-foot. Oh, it must have been 8 to 9. It was a kind of a soft tip. It was a lovely rod. I still have it here. And yeah, that was a beautiful, memorable fish. I'll never forget it. I had a mate with me from Wicklow town. He didn't get a bite all weekend. But the craziest thing was, like, I fished for 2 days before that, and that's when I hooked into that beautiful fish. And I kept at it. We got a picture and a nice quick release. And we walked up above the little hut. It's kind of like a little fast run there. And I went out there. It wouldn't have been 40 minutes after I'd landed that first one. And I hooked into a second one. And that was a cock salmon. He was in the system what looked like all summer. He was like a massive brown trout. Beautiful fish. So that was probably my, up to date now, thank God, my most memorable fish and day.
That's fantastic. Did your mate ever go fishing with you again?
No, we don't talk. I'm just joking. No, we're good mates. We keep in touch. Yeah. He's hard at it. He's still trying to get that elusive bar of silver.
Well, do you know what, Graham? As you said, it's about keeping at it. It's a bit, like when you say with competition fishing, you came last, you kept at it, and you just never know what might turn up.
Yeah.
If you persevere.
You never know. That's it. And that's the elusiveness of this game we call fishing.
Exactly.
And I don't know why we're drawn to it. It's just a beautiful thing. And I love it, and I'll do it till the day I die.
Couldn't have said it better. Graham Reynolds, Sweden's next captain, the Zlatan Ibrahimovic of fly fishing.
Zlatan Ibrahimovic.
Oh, yeah. Paddy Ibrahimovic.
Ibrahimovic.
Tight lines for the season, Graham, and definitely we'll do a follow-up again with you, because we'll delve a bit more into the fishing in Sweden. It'll be brilliant. Thanks again for your time, Graham.
Thanks, guys.
And thanks to Graham Reynolds for joining us on the show. Don't forget to rate, review and follow the Ireland on the Fly podcast on Apple, Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Plus you can keep up to date on IrelandOnTheFly.com as well as on Instagram, and myself and Tom will be back with another episode about the people and places of fly fishing in Ireland.